The scream that pierced through the Grand Oceania Hotel's basement echoed off concrete walls like a banshee's wail. Maintenance worker Rurik Volkov dropped his wrench, the metallic clang reverberating through the service corridor as he stumbled backward from the industrial freezer. Inside, curled in a fetal position among boxes of frozen vegetables, lay the body of Tempest Ashworth, the hotel's night auditor, who had vanished 3 days earlier. Detective Selim Reeves arrived 20 minutes later, his weathered face grim as he surveyed the scene. The Grand Oceania was Millbrook City's most prestigious establishment, a towering monument to luxury that had hosted presidents and movie stars. Now, it would be remembered for something far more sinister. Tempest's body was a sculpture of ice and flesh, her auburn hair crystallized with frost, her skin translucent blue. The medical examiner, Dr. Esperanza Vega, estimated she'd been dead for at least 48 hours, though the freezing temperatures made precision difficult. What struck Reeves immediately was her position: too neat, too arranged. People didn't freeze to death in perfect fetal positions. Hotel manager Cassianus Grove wrung his hands as he provided details. Tempest had worked the night shift for 2 years, reliable as clockwork. She'd clocked in Tuesday night, but never clocked out. Her car remained in the employee parking lot, keys still in her purse in the staff locker room. Security footage showed her entering the building at 10:47 p.m. Tuesday, but she seemed to vanish into thin air after that. The freezer itself told a story. It was a walk-in unit used for overflow storage, rarely accessed except during major events. The door could only be locked from the outside, and there was no emergency release mechanism, a safety violation that Grove admitted with visible discomfort. The lock showed no signs of tampering, and Grove insisted only 3 people had keys: himself, head chef Araminta Blackthorne, and maintenance supervisor Dorian Frost. As Reeves examined the scene, something nagged at him. Tempest wore her work uniform: black slacks, white shirt, hotel blazer, but her shoes were missing. Her bare feet were clean, no cuts or dirt that would indicate she'd walked anywhere without footwear. More puzzling, her hands were positioned palms up, almost ceremonial. Dr. Vega pointed out another anomaly during her preliminary examination. No defensive wounds, no signs of struggle. But look at this. She lifted Tempest's arm, revealing a small puncture wound on the inner elbow, barely visible against the discolored skin. Could be from a needle. The first interviews revealed a complex web of relationships. Tempest had been quiet but well-liked, though several employees mentioned she'd seemed distracted lately. She'd broken up with her boyfriend, Lysander Pike, a local bartender, just 2 weeks prior. Pike had been calling the hotel repeatedly, trying to reach her. Grove reluctantly admitted to recent tensions among staff. Budget cuts had led to layoffs, and there were rumors of the hotel being sold. Some employees blamed Tempest for being too close to management, suspecting she'd reported colleagues for minor infractions. As night fell over the Grand Oceania, Reeves stared at the imposing building, its windows glowing like watchful eyes. Somewhere within those walls lay the truth about Tempest Ashworth's final hours. The freezer hadn't just preserved her body, had preserved a crime scene, and despite the hotel's reputation for discretion, Reeves was determined that this time, its secrets would not stay buried in ice. The case had all the elements of a locked room mystery, but Reeves had learned that the most impossible crimes, often, had the simplest explanations. Someone had wanted Tempest dead, and they'd used the hotel's own infrastructure to hide their crime. The question wasn't just who, it was how, and why the security cameras had failed to capture the killer's path. The security office of the Grand Oceania resembled a command center, banks of monitors displaying feeds from over 200 cameras throughout the property. Head of security Ignatius Morse, a former police detective with silver hair and calculating eyes, lead Detective Reeves through the digital maze of the hotel's surveillance system. "We've got every corridor, every entrance, every elevator, Morse explained, his fingers dancing across multiple keyboards. But Tuesday night, we had what I call selective blindness. The footage was indeed puzzling. Tempest appeared on cameras entering through the employee entrance at 10:47 p.m., badging in with her key card. She walked purposefully toward the elevator bank, her movements normal, unhurried. But the elevator camera mysteriously malfunctioned between 10:52 and 11:15 p.m., exactly the window when Tempest would have been traveling to her post at the front desk. Convenient malfunction, Reeves observed dryly. Morse's jaw tightened. That's what bothers me. In 15 years of security work, I've never seen such precise technical failures. The camera didn't gradually deteriorate, went dark instantly, then came back online with perfect clarity. The basement cameras told an even stranger story. The corridor leading to the freezer had 3 cameras, but each experienced brief outages throughout Tuesday night, never simultaneously, but in a pattern that created blind spots lasting exactly 4 minutes each. Someone with intimate knowledge of the system had orchestrated these failures. Reeves studied the staff schedules. Only 5 people had access to the security system: Morse himself, hotel manager Grove, IT specialist Phoenix Hartwell, and 2 night security guards in Steele and Valencia Cross. All claimed to have been at their regular posts during the relevant hours. The breakthrough came when Dr. Vega called with autopsy results. Tempest didn't freeze to death, she announced. She was already dead when she was placed in that freezer. Cause of death was respiratory failure caused by a paralytic agent, probably succinylcholine. It's a muscle relaxant used in surgery, virtually undetectable after death unless you know to look for it. This revelation transformed the investigation. Tempest had been murdered elsewhere, then moved to the freezer to obscure the time of death and destroy evidence. The killer had medical knowledge and access to controlled substances. Reeves expanded his investigation to include the hotel's medical staff. The Grand Oceania employed a house physician, Dr. Cordelia Nightingale, for guest emergencies. Her office contained a locked medicine cabinet with various emergency drugs, including When questioned, she insisted the cabinet hadn't been breached, but her hands trembled as she spoke. The personal dynamics grew more complex as Reeves dug deeper. Phoenix Hartwell, the IT specialist, had been dating Tempest secretly for 3 months, a relationship that violated hotel policy and explained her recent distraction. Hartwell was devastated by her death, but revealed crucial information. Tempest had discovered financial irregularities in the hotel's books and planned to report them. She was scared, Hartwell confided, tears streaming down his face. Said someone was embezzling money, using fake vendor accounts. She'd traced it back to someone with high-level access. This motive opened new possibilities. Reeves requested the hotel's financial records, but Grove claimed they were stored off-site and would take days to retrieve. The delay felt deliberate. Valencia Cross, the night security guard, provided another piece of the puzzle. She'd seen Dr. Nightingale in the basement Tuesday night, around 11:30 p.m., claiming to retrieve medical supplies from storage. At the time it seemed routine, but Cross now remembered the doctor seemed agitated and was carrying a large medical bag. The evidence was pointing toward Dr. Nightingale, but Reeves sensed something deeper. The financial motive suggested a conspiracy, not a lone actor. Someone else was pulling the strings, using the doctor as an instrument of murder. As Reeves left the hotel that evening, he noticed Morse watching him from a window high above. The security chief's expression was unreadable, but his presence felt menacing. Reeves made a mental note to investigate Morse's financial situation and to watch his own back. The Grand Oceania held its secrets jealously, but cracks were beginning to show in its polished facade. Tempest Ashworth had died because she'd looked too closely at something she wasn't supposed to see. Now Reeves was following the same dangerous path, and he wondered if the hotel's freezer had enough room for another victim. The financial records arrived at Detective Reeves' desk like a paper avalanche, 3 boxes of documents. Dating back 5 years, each page a potential clue in Tempest Ashworth's murder. Reeves enlisted forensic accountant Meridian Blackwater to help decode the hotel's complex financial structure. What they discovered was a masterpiece of creative accounting. The Grand Oceania's books showed payments to over 40 vendors, maintenance companies, food suppliers, cleaning services, but when Blackwater cross-referenced the addresses, 15 of the companies were registered to vacant lots or non-existent buildings. Someone's been siphoning money for years, Blackwater explained, highlighting suspicious transactions on her laptop screen. Small amounts, never enough to trigger audits, but it adds up. I estimate at least $2 million over the past 3 years. The fake vendor payments were authorized by different department heads, but all required final approval from the hotel's general manager, Cassianus Grove. When confronted, Grove's polished demeanor cracked like ice under pressure. I trusted my department heads, he stammered, perspiration beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. If Tempest found irregularities, she should have come to me directly. But Phoenix Hartwell revealed that Tempest had tried exactly that. She went to Grove 2 weeks ago, Hartwell told Reeves privately. He brushed her off, said she was overstepping her authority. That's when she decided to document everything herself. Reeves obtained a warrant for Tempest's apartment, where they found her hidden investigation. She'd been meticulous, photographing documents, creating flowcharts of money transfers, even recording conversations on her phone. Her bedroom wall looked like a detective's evidence board, with photos and string connecting various hotel employees to the fraudulent schemes. The recordings were particularly damning. In one, Grove could be heard instructing Dr. Nightingale to inflate insurance claims for guest medical incidents. In another, Security Chief Morse discussed charging the hotel for non-existent equipment upgrades. But the most revealing conversation was between Grove and an unknown woman discussing the Ashworth problem. She's getting too close, the woman's voice said, distorted but clearly agitated. We need to handle this before she ruins everything. Grove's response chilled Reeves to the bone. Leave it to me. Sometimes problems solve themselves. The voice analysis revealed the unknown woman was Valencia Cross, the night security guard who'd claimed to be a witness. Cross wasn't just observing the crime, she was part of the conspiracy. When Reeves arrived to arrest Cross, she was gone. Her apartment had been hastily abandoned, clothes scattered, drawers emptied, but she'd left behind a crucial piece of evidence, a vial of succinylcholine with Dr. Nightingale's prescription label. Dr. Nightingale's arrest came at her home, a modest suburban house that belied her expensive tastes. Inside, investigators found luxury goods far beyond a hotel physician's salary, designer clothes, expensive jewelry, art pieces worth thousands of dollars. The doctor's bank records showed regular deposits of unexplained cash. Under interrogation, Nightingale's composure dissolved. They made me do it, she sobbed. Grove said if I didn't help, he'd report me for stealing medical supplies. I needed the money, my daughter's medical bills, her cancer treatments. She detailed the murder with clinical precision. Grove had lured Tempest to his office Tuesday night under pretense of discussing her accusations. While Grove distracted her, Cross had entered through a connecting door and injected the paralytic agent. They'd waited for the drug to take effect, then carried Tempest's body to the basement using service corridors and the freight elevator, all during the carefully orchestrated camera malfunctions. We were supposed to make it look like an accident, Nightingale continued. Grove said no one would investigate too closely if she just disappeared, but Cross insisted on the freezer, said it would buy us time. The freezer had indeed preserved more than just evidence, it had preserved their guilt. Grove's plan might have worked if he'd simply made Tempest disappear, but the elaborate staging had created too many questions, too many inconsistencies. Grove's arrest took place in the Grand Oceania's marble lobby, watched by shocked guests and employees. The hotel manager who'd built his career on discretion was led away in handcuffs. His reputation as frozen as his victim had been, but one conspirator remained at large. Valencia Cross had vanished completely, taking with her detailed knowledge of the hotel's security systems and enough stolen money to start a new life anywhere in the world. Reeves issued a nationwide bolo alert, but Cross had demonstrated her ability to stay invisible when needed. As the Grand Oceania's new management began the process of rebuilding trust and implementing financial controls, Reeves couldn't shake the feeling that the case wasn't truly closed. Cross was still out there, and she'd proven herself capable of murder to protect her secrets. The hotel's freezer had given up its victim, but the full scope of the conspiracy was still thawing, revealing new horrors with each passing day. Valencia Cross had vanished like morning mist, but Detective Reeves knew that people never truly disappear without leaving traces. 3 days after her apartment was found empty, the first clue emerged from an unexpected source: the hotel's own security system that Cross had manipulated so expertly. Its specialist, Phoenix Hartwell, still grieving for Tempest but determined to honor her memory, had been analyzing the security footage with obsessive detail, hidden in the metadata of the corrupted files. He discovered something Cross hadn't anticipated: timestamp anomalies that revealed when the system had been accessed remotely. She was logging in from outside the building, Hartwell explained to Reeves, pointing at code scrolling across his monitor. Look at these IP addresses. She was controlling the cameras from at least 3 different locations during the murder. The IP trail led to internet cafes, public libraries, and a 24 laundromat across the city, all places where Cross could access computers anonymously. But her pattern of movement revealed something crucial. She was staying somewhere in the Riverside district, always accessing systems within a 2-mile radius of the old warehouse area. Reeves coordinated with federal authorities, as Cross had likely crossed state lines. FBI agent Kestrel Whitmore brought resources and expertise, but also impatience with the methodical local investigation. We should flood the area with agents, Whitmore argued during a briefing. Canvass every building, every abandoned space. Cross knows we're coming, Reeves countered. She's been watching us watch her. We go in loud, she disappears again. The psychological profile painted Cross as calculating but desperate. FBI behavioral analyst Sage Ironwood described her as an organized, non-social killer, someone who could plan meticulously but lacked genuine human connections, making her both dangerous and ultimately self-defeating. The breakthrough came from financial tracking. Cross had been accessing her various bank accounts, but only in small amounts to avoid triggering alerts. The pattern showed she was preparing for something, either a permanent escape or a final confrontation. Cross's background revealed years of careful planning. Born Valentina Kowalski, she'd changed her name legally 7 years earlier and built a false identity. Her apartment had hidden compartments containing multiple sets of identification documents, suggesting this wasn't her first disappearance. The connection to the Grand Oceania went deeper than anyone had realized. Cross hadn't just been part of Grove's embezzlement scheme, she'd been its architect. Security footage from 3 years earlier showed her meeting with Grove in shadowy hotel corridors, their body language suggesting intimacy beyond professional collaboration. Former hotel employees revealed that Cross and Grove had briefly dated, though both had denied any relationship. The romance had ended badly, but their financial partnership had continued, bound by mutual incrimination. Dr. Nightingale, now cooperating fully with authorities, provided crucial details about Cross's psychology. Valencia was obsessed with control, the doctor recalled. She knew everyone's secrets, everyone's weaknesses. She made Grove feel powerful while she pulled the strings. The manhunt intensified when Cross made her first mistake. Security cameras at a downtown bank captured her attempting to access a safety deposit box registered under another false name. By the time police arrived, she was gone. But she'd left behind a pattern of behavior that revealed her endgame. Cross wasn't just running, she was eliminating loose ends. Phoenix Hartwell reported strange activity on his personal devices, suggesting Cross was monitoring the investigation's progress. Hotel employees who'd cooperated with police began receiving anonymous threats. The psychological pressure was deliberate. Cross wanted everyone to know she was still out there, still capable of striking. But her need for control was also her vulnerability. She couldn't resist pulling strings, even when doing so exposed her. Location. The final tracking came through her own expertise. Cross had been using the hotel's security system to monitor police activities, accessing cameras throughout the city to track the investigation. But Hartwell had learned from her methods, secretly placing backdoors in the system that revealed her access points. "She's in the old Meridian Textile building," Hartwell announced during an emergency briefing. She's been using their abandoned security office as a base of operations. The building had been empty for 5 years, its top floors still containing obsolete surveillance equipment that Cross had somehow reactivated. From there, she'd been watching the entire city, playing puppet master, even while being hunted. As SWAT teams surrounded the building and helicopters circled overhead, Reeves felt the weight of responsibility. Cross had killed once to protect her secrets. She wouldn't hesitate to kill again. The final confrontation would test not just police tactics, but the very nature of justice itself. The woman who'd frozen Tempest Ashworth in a hotel's heart was about to face the cold reality of her own choices. But Cross had proven herself capable of deadly surprises, and Reeves wondered if the building's shadows held one final trap. The Meridian Textile building rose into the night sky like a tombstone, its broken windows reflecting the surrounding police lights in fractured patterns. Detective Reeves stood in the tactical command vehicle, studying blueprints of the 12-story structure while SWAT Commander Ridge Blackstone outlined the assault plan. "Building's been condemned for 3 years, Blackstone explained, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the operation. "Structural integrity is questionable, especially on the upper floors. We've got teams positioned on all sides, but she's had time to prepare." Through thermal imaging, they'd confirmed Cross's presence on the 8th floor, in what used to be the building's security office. Heat signatures showed she was alone, but intelligence suggested she'd booby-trapped multiple access points during her weeks of hiding. FBI agent Whitmore favored a direct assault. "We go in hard and fast, overwhelm her before she can react." But Reeves had studied Cross's psychology too carefully to underestimate her. "She wants us to come charging in. This building is her advantage. She knows every hiding spot, every structural weakness." The decision was made to attempt negotiation first. Cross had murdered Tempest to protect her secrets, but she'd also demonstrated a need for recognition, for acknowledgement of her intelligence. That ego might be their way in. Reeves positioned himself in the building's lobby, speaking through a bullhorn connected to the building's old intercom system. "Valencia, this is Detective Reeves. I know you can hear me." The response came through speakers throughout the building, Cross's voice echoing in the abandoned spaces like a ghost. "Detective, you've been very persistent, almost admirable. Tempest Ashworth didn't deserve to die." A pause, then bitter laughter. Tempest was a naive girl who thought she could play detective. She had no idea how complex the game really was. Cross began revealing details that chilled everyone listening. The embezzlement scheme had been just the beginning. She'd been collecting information on hotel guests for years, blackmailing politicians, businessmen, even foreign diplomats who'd stayed at the Grand Oceania. The hotel's reputation for discretion had made it perfect for intelligence gathering. "You think this was about money?" Cross's voice carried a manic edge. "I had files on senators, judges, corporate executives. I could have owned this city. The revelation transformed the investigation's scope. Cross hadn't just been stealing, she'd been operating a sophisticated espionage network using the hotel as cover. Tempest's murder was just the most visible consequence of a much larger conspiracy. "It's over, Valencia," Reeves called out. "We know about the blackmail files, the offshore accounts. Surrender now, and we can work out a deal." "Oh, but it's not over, Detective. You see, I've been very busy during our conversation." The building's fire alarm system suddenly activated, but instead of evacuation signals, speakers throughout the structure began broadcasting recordings, phone calls, private conversations, intimate moments between powerful people who'd stayed at the hotel. Cross was releasing years of collected blackmail material simultaneously. Media outlets, monitoring police frequencies, began receiving anonymous data dumps containing compromising information about dozens of public figures. Cross's final act wasn't just revenge, it was chaos, designed to destroy anyone who might have benefited from her silence. SWAT teams moved into the building as Cross's laughter echoed through the corridors. They found her traps everywhere, tripwires connected to cameras that broadcast their positions, motion sensors that triggered blinding lights, even structural supports she'd weakened to create potential collapses. On the 8th floor, they found Cross's command center, a maze of computer screens, surveillance equipment, and printed photographs covering every surface. The walls were lined with files containing decades of secrets, organized with obsessive precision. But Cross herself was gone. The trail led upward to the building's roof access. SWAT teams found the door propped open, cold wind rushing through. The stairwell. On the roof, Cross stood near the edge, silhouetted against the city lights, a laptop computer in her hands. "One more step, and I drop this," she called out. "Everything I know, everything I've collected, it all gets uploaded to every news outlet in the world." Reeves emerged from the stairwell alone, hands visible and empty. "It's over, Valencia. Even if you release everything, you've lost. The hotel scheme is exposed. Your network is destroyed." Cross turned to face him, and he saw the toll her choices had taken. Once beautiful and composed, she now looked haggard, desperate, consumed by the very secrets she'd hoarded. "You don't understand," she said, voice breaking. "I never meant for Tempest to die. She was just supposed to disappear, transferred to another hotel." But Grove panicked, said we had no choice. "You had a choice every step of the way. You chose to blackmail people, to steal, to murder. I chose survival." Cross screamed. "Do you know what it's like to have nothing, to be nothing? The information gave me power, made me matter." The laptop in her hands contained enough secrets to topple governments, destroy careers, ruin countless lives. But as sirens wailed in the distance, and helicopter searchlights swept the rooftop, Cross realized that all her accumulated power meant nothing if she was dead or imprisoned. "Help me understand," Reeves said, stepping closer. "Tell me about Tempest's last moments. Help me give her family closure." For a moment, Cross's defenses cracked, revealing the broken person beneath the criminal mastermind. She fought the drug longer than we expected, kept trying to speak, to leave some message. Grove got scared, wanted to increase the dose, but double quotes, she trailed off. "But you what?" I held her hand, told her it would be quick, painless. She looked at me like she forgave me. Tears streamed down Cross's face. Nobody had ever looked at me like that before. The confession was being recorded, but more importantly, it was true. In her final moments, Cross had shown a glimpse of humanity that the blackmail and murder had buried. As SWAT officers closed in, Cross made her final choice. She set the laptop down carefully, its secrets contained for now, and raised her hands in surrender. "I want to tell you everything," she said quietly. "All of it. The names, the accounts, the whole network. But I want something in return." Reeves nodded. "What do you want?" "I want to visit Tempest's grave. I want to apologize properly." The woman who'd orchestrated one of the most complex criminal conspiracies in the city's history was led away in handcuffs, her empire of secrets crumbling around her. But in that final moment of surrender, she'd chosen redemption over revenge, a decision that would echo through the concluding chapter of this frozen tragedy. 6 months after Tempest Ashworth's body was discovered in the Grand Oceania's freezer, the courtroom in downtown Millbrook City overflowed with media, victims, and observers drawn to witness the conclusion of what prosecutors called the most complex criminal conspiracy in the state's history. Valencia Cross sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, her once commanding presence diminished, but her intelligence still sharp. She'd honored her promise to Detective Reeves, providing testimony that exposed a network of corruption, reaching into the highest levels of state and federal government. The evidence she'd revealed was staggering. Cross's blackmail files contained compromising information on 3 sitting senators, a federal judge, 2 state governors, and dozens of corporate executives. Her testimony had already triggered resignations, indictments, and a congressional investigation into how foreign intelligence services had potentially exploited the hotel's guest information. But today's proceedings focused on the murder of Tempest Ashworth, a young woman whose only crime had been uncovering the truth. Prosecutor Evelyn Darkwater presented the case with methodical precision. The evidence was overwhelming: financial records proving the embezzlement scheme, autopsy reports confirming the cause of death, security footage showing the conspirators' movements, and Cross's own detailed confession. The defendant orchestrated not just a theft, but a systematic violation of trust, Darkwater told the jury. Tempest Ashworth died because she possessed the moral courage to expose corruption, and the defendant possessed the moral bankruptcy to murder her for it. Cross's defense attorney, River Brightwood, faced an impossible task. The evidence was ironclad, the confession recorded, the motive established. Instead, he focused on mitigation: Cross's troubled childhood, her genuine remorse, and her cooperation with authorities. "My client made terrible choices," Brightwood acknowledged, "but she also made the ultimate choice to tell the truth, to expose a corruption that went far beyond her own crimes." The victim impact statements were devastating. Tempest's mother, Celeste Ashworth, spoke through tears about a daughter who'd dreamed of becoming a detective, who'd practiced investigation skills by solving puzzles and reading mystery novels. Phoenix Hartwell described losing not just a girlfriend, but his best friend and moral compass. But the most powerful testimony came from an unexpected source: Dr. Cordelia Nightingale, the hotel physician who'd administered the fatal injection. Now, serving her own sentence for manslaughter, she appeared via video link from state prison. "I want the court to understand that Ms. Cross manipulated all of us," Nightingale said, her voice steady but haunted. "But I also want to say that in her final moments with Tempest, she showed genuine remorse. She held that girl's hand while she died, and I saw her soul break in that moment." Cross had maintained her composure throughout the trial, but these words brought tears to her eyes. She had confided to Reeves during interrogation that Tempest's final look of forgiveness haunted her dreams. The prosecution's case was further strengthened by the recovery of Cross's hidden offshore accounts, containing over $4 million, stolen from the hotel and extorted from blackmail victims. The money would be returned to victims and Tempest's family, but no amount could restore what had been lost. Cassianus Grove, the hotel manager, had already been sentenced to 15 years for his role in the conspiracy. His testimony against Cross was clinical. Detached, he'd accepted his guilt, but shown no remorse for the human cost of their crimes. The jury deliberated for only 3 hours before returning with their verdict: guilty on all counts, including first-degree murder, conspiracy, extortion, and racketeering. Cross showed no emotion as the verdict was read, staring straight ahead with the composure that had once made her so effective at reading people's secrets. Judge Maximiliano Sterling, a veteran of high-profile cases, delivered the sentence with gravity befitting the crime's complexity. Ms. Cross, you possessed remarkable intelligence and organizational skills. Had you chosen to use these abilities legally, you might have achieved legitimate success and recognition. Instead, you chose to build an empire on others' secrets and vulnerabilities, ultimately taking an innocent life to protect your criminal enterprise. The sentence was life without parole, plus 60 years for the additional charges. Cross would die in prison of fate, she accepted with the same calculating calm she'd once used to manipulate security cameras and bank accounts. But the story didn't end with sentencing. Cross's cooperation had exposed a network that reached beyond the Grand Oceania. Federal investigators were pursuing cases in 12 states, following money trails and blackmail schemes that spanned decades. The hotel industry implemented new security protocols and financial oversight measures to prevent similar conspiracies. Detective Reeves visited Tempest's grave on the first anniversary of her murder, finding fresh flowers and a small note. Cross, despite being confined to maximum security, had somehow arranged for the memorial a final acknowledgement of the life she'd taken. The Grand Oceania Hotel was sold to new ownership, renovated extensively, and reopened with enhanced security measures and transparent financial practices. The freezer where Tempest died was removed entirely, replaced with a memorial garden visible from the street, a permanent reminder that even the most carefully hidden crimes eventually come to light. Phoenix Hartwell left the hotel industry and became a cybersecurity consultant, using his expertise to help other businesses protect against internal threats. He established the Tempest Ashworth Foundation, providing scholarships for young women pursuing careers in criminal justice. As Reeves reviewed the closed case file, he reflected on the investigation's lessons. The most sophisticated criminals often defeated themselves through their need for control and recognition. Cross could have simply stolen money and disappeared, but her compulsion to collect secrets and manipulate others ultimately exposed her to the very law enforcement she'd spent years evading. The case had also revealed how interconnected crime had become in the digital age. What began as hotel embezzlement had spiraled into international espionage, political corruption, and murder. Justice had been served, but the reverberations would continue for years. Tempest Ashworth had dreamed of becoming a detective, of solving mysteries and uncovering truth. In death, she'd done exactly that. Her investigation notes and moral courage had exposed one of the most complex criminal networks in the state's history. Her frozen body had preserved not just evidence, but justice itself. The Grand Oceania's freezer was gone, but the truth it contained would echo through courtrooms and legislative hearings for years to come. Sometimes justice moved slowly, but like ice eventually melting. It was inevitable and thorough. Cross would spend her remaining years contemplating the moment she chose murder over exposure, power over humanity. In the end, her empire of secrets had frozen around her like a prison of ice, and unlike her victim, she would never be free from the cold.